Okay, so you want to study abroad in America or in the United Kingdom, but I bet you're probably a little overwhelmed about what you should do first and how you should progress towards this goal. Well, stay tuned and don't get too stressed because I'm going to tell you what you should do starting from a year before you want to study abroad all the way down to 1 week before you make the big move. So, are you ready? Let's get started. What should you do when you are thinking about studying abroad? Well, the first is a no-brainer. You need to choose where you want to study and what you want to study. Now, some people choose to go to America. Some people choose to go to the United Kingdom. Some people choose to go to Australia. Others may choose New Zealand. Whatever your English-speaking destination is, the process of moving abroad is something that's universal, and there are some standard steps that you can take to make the transition a lot easier, a lot less scary, and a lot less stressful. That last one's very important to me because when I'm going somewhere and I get stressed out, I do not like it at all. But we can take some actions such as making a plan to help us better move along this timeline. So let's jump into it. I don't want to waste too much more of your time. The first thing that you should do, like I said, is choose where you want to study. But after you choose where you want to study, you need to choose, are you going to go to a university or are you going to go abroad just for an English intensive course? Because depending on what type of course you choose will affect the type of visa that you need to have as an English learner. Now, if you're not sure about what to do, find somebody who study abroad, ding, 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 I have, and ask them what they know about the process. I can guarantee you that these people will be able to give you some of the most valuable information that you can obtain about studying abroad because they've gone through this process. And most of the time, if someone has gone to study abroad, they're very open about sharing this experience. A lot of times, they're also very proud of it because it's something that's very difficult, and that's one of the reasons why people think they can't do it. But I know you can do it, otherwise you wouldn't be watching my video. So now, when should you start this research? I recommend, in my experience, and multiple people I've talked to in my experience all recommend that you should start your research at least a year before you plan to study. So if you want to go to study in America in 2023, you should be studying now. You should be researching and finding out the university or program that you might want to apply for. I know it sounds like very far out, but in this video, you're going to get step by step on what to do. So stay with me and let's keep moving on. Now, once you have chosen where you want to study, if you've chosen to study at a university, which is the most common route, I think, you're going to need to have some sort of English qualification. So this, you're still in the research phase. You need to research and know what exam you want to take. And the reason why is because when you're going to go to an English-speaking country, you need at least an intermediate level of English in order to be able to get accepted into the university and to apply for and successfully obtain your visa. Now, B1 might sound a little bit like a reach for some people, but B1 is actually very simple. And at that point, you're able to communicate, but you still have a lot to learn. But that's the value of going abroad to learn English. If you go at the B1 level, you can very quickly, especially at a university, move up to that C1 level, which is proficient. And that, B2, C1 is generally what I tell most of my students to aim for if they're starting out, because that right there means that you can talk to almost anyone. Now, if you're going to work in an English-speaking country, you might want to eventually get C2. But for this video and for this purpose, for studying abroad, stick with B1 because that's what you need to get a visa and that's what you need to get accepted into a university. Now, once you find out the exam you want to take, so for America, it's usually TOEFL or the Pearson test of English, but if you're going to be studying in the United Kingdom, most of the time that's Ielts. Now, I've been living in the United Kingdom for nearly 5 years now. And during my time here, I've helped many people prepare successfully for their Ielts. And the test is very similar to TOEFL. The difference is the scoring system, but the leveling system is very, very similar. Now, the reason you need to check is because some UK universities only accept Ielts, but most places in America are going to want a TOEFL. However, there are some universities that will take an Ielts. Now, I recommend Ielts just because I know this test very well, but both of them are equivalent, and the skill set you need to obtain in preparing for this test is going to be very similar. Now, you need to also check government guidelines for where you're going to go. Now, I came to the UK to study, so I'm just going to tell you some of the things in this video that the UK requires if you're going to go study in England. Now, the first one is that you need to have some money in your bank account. You need to have at least £10,000 or around $13,000. Now, that is a lot of money for most people, so what you need to do is you need to start saving at least a year in advance. You know, if you put back, $700 a month or £700 a month for a year, well, you're gonna almost be at where you need to be. So, 14 months at that price, it really doesn't sound like that much money when you break it down like that. And it's definitely something that you can do as long as you plan ahead. Now, that's what you should start to do a year before, but let's move a little on further down this timeline. I'm going to move from 1 year to 9 months before you are planning to study abroad. So 9 months before you start to study abroad, you need to get something very important, and that's your passport. Now, if you already have a passport, you can pass over this step. But if you don't have a passport yet, you really need to get one. Now, if you're going to get a passport, you'll need a couple things, and this is for the people who don't have one. You're going to need a photo. You're going to need to fill out an application. I am American by birth, so I have to fill it out by paper and I have to send it in. This is going to depend on your country, but the application is a necessity, and you usually have to pay a fee. In America, the fee is somewhere around $200, but again, that's going to depend on your country. Now, keep in mind that a visa is usually going to take at least a month to 6 weeks, so you really want to line everything up before you even continue in this process. This is something you need to do well in advance before moving abroad. So 9 months is what I call the sweet point, because it gives you some time to fix any errors or resolve any hiccups that might pop up as you're going through this process. Now, if you already have a passport, there are still some things you need to be doing around the 9 months mark before you plan to leave. And the first one is checking the expiration date on your passport. When does it expire? And the reason why is because most countries, in order for you to get a visa, are going to require that you have at least 6 months validity in your visa. In your passport. If your passport does not have at least 6 months validity, then they will most likely deny your visa, and that's a lot of money that you just wasted. So check the expiration date, and that 6 months that remain, that needs to be after your stay, okay? They don't want you applying, the governments don't want you applying for a visa while you're in their country on study, because it complicates a bunch of different things. And I can also tell you, as someone who's lived here for some time, and somebody broke into my house essentially, and they stole my passport, and this was in at the height of COVID, so it was very difficult for me to get that back, because I didn't have a lot of the paperwork that I needed. So I had to contact my mom and get a lot of stuff. Just save yourself the hassle and go ahead and check when your passport expires, and make sure you have 6 months of validity after your stay will finish. All right, guys, so that's not all you need to do at the 9-month mark. You also need to start applying for your programs. So what university are you going to go to? What is the English course that you're going to apply to? You need to apply for it, and you need to get accepted, because your visa is going to depend on this. Now, there are a couple other things you can do here, and I'm going to talk more about the university route because that's what I did. Now, the first thing you need to do if you're going to study abroad after you have the passport is you need to apply for the program, get into the program, and then my recommendation is to look at the university's website and see what kind of scholarships they have. When I came to England, I applied for a scholarship and I got 5,000 British pounds, which is about $7,500. So it was a very generous scholarship that they gave me, and all I had to do was write a letter and say, hey, here's why I want this help. Here's how I need this help. I had to show them that I needed the help because it's very expensive to move to a country and study there. And then, you just tell them how you're going to help the people around you. I'll make a video about how to get a scholarship because I got one. And I'll give you all the tips and tricks I did that will guarantee you success in getting a scholarship when you are ready to study abroad. So subscribe to my channel so you can see that when I make it for you a little later. Now, I want you to keep in mind when I say that foreign tuition is expensive, study abroad is expensive, I mean usually double the cost of what it is in the country you're going to stay in. So, for example, in England, someone that is British or from the UK is going to pay around 9,000 British pounds per year for a program. Mine was 30,000, and that did not include any of my accommodation or any of my food. So $30,000 was just what I had to drop in order to take the program. Now, once you get into the program, as soon as you get into the program, because remember, this is still about that 9-month mark. If you start at month 9 and then you apply for everything, by month 7, you should be able to apply for your visa. And I recommend that you do this around month 6 or month 7. That way, you have that visa ready to go on the day that your flight is taking off. Now, I'm going to tell you guys, when you're coming to the UK, you're going to need a Tier 4 visa. That's a student visa. But that's not the only thing you need to do. When you apply for the visa, you're going to have to prove some stuff to the British government. And the first one is that you have £10,000 in your bank account. We already talked about that one. But you're going to have to also get all of your documents translated into English. So if you're coming from China and your documents are in Chinese, that's not going to work. They're going to require you to translate them, and it's going to have to be a certified translator. If you're coming from a Spanish-speaking country, the same rule applies. It really doesn't matter where you're coming from. Since this government functions in English, they require you to have all the documents in English, and that is an unwavering exception. That means that they will not bend at all. They must be in English. You also need to get an academic record. And the reason they do this is because when you submit this, they need to be able to verify that what you have told the school is correct. And this usually has to be notarized. Depending on the country you're coming from, it has to be notarized or certified. If you don't know how to get a certified academic record, usually you can just go to the university or high school that you went to, and they can give you a certified copy of this. If they do that, keep the seal on the back and then send it in with your application. Do not even open it, because if it looks open, they might not accept it, or they might think that you changed it slightly. All right, guys. Now, the cost for the Tier 4 visa in 2022, which is right now when I'm making the video, is £348. So it's going to set you back about $430 US. But in England, we have the NHS, which I love, and this, you have to pay a surcharge for this because you're coming into this country and you're going to use the healthcare system. All the people that have lived here their entire life have paid into this system, but because we're coming in and we're going to be using it, they're going to charge us a little extra to try to make up the cost, because it's kind of spread out here amongst everyone. And that cost as of 2022, when I'm making this video, is £624. Now, if you're going to the US, I know this because I work very closely with some international schools who prepare students to go to work in America and to live in America and study in America. And what you're going to need there is a student visa, and this comes in 3 flavors. You can get an F1, M1, or J1 visa, and these are usually online applications. However, obtaining the visa is a bit more difficult than it is to obtain one for the UK. Why? Because you have to go to an in-person interview most of the time at a US consulate in your host country. Now, An interview costs $160, but that's also your application fee. So for America, you're looking at $160 to get your visa and have your interview before you can even purchase a plane ticket to America, essentially. Now, this is very important. If you're going to be studying in America, make sure you get student health insurance, because in America, healthcare is very expensive, and if you don't have insurance, sometimes you cannot even go to a doctor. So that is my biggest recommendation. If you're going to America, please make sure that you are getting student healthcare insurance. I cannot stress this enough. It is extremely important if you're going to America. Now, that's 9 months all the way down to 6 months, but now we're at 5 months. Wow, I bet you're getting excited. 5 months before your trip. 5 months before your trip, you need to start looking for housing. Now, if you're coming to the UK, you can look for a house share on websites such as OpenRent. Many of the websites here have house shares, and they're very easy to find, and sometimes you can get a room for as low as £100 a week, so it's really not that big of a cost. Or you can also get dorm housing on campus. Now, it's not a really big problem if you get something off campus in the United Kingdom, and that's because transportation is very easy to find here. Public transport is everywhere. You can catch a bus, you can catch a train, pretty much anything you want, Uber, and it's not going to cost too much as long as you're not going too far. If you're getting a bus, it's going to be really cheap to go far, and even if you get a train, sometimes you can travel very far distances for a very low price. Now, let's compare this to America. If you're going to go to America, I highly recommend that you get a dorm room on campus unless you have family near you in America who you're going to be staying with. And the reason why is because America is very car dependent. A lot of times it's very difficult to get around unless you have a car. That's a little bit different story if you're living in a huge city like New York or Chicago, because they usually have very good transportation. But most of the places in America are not going to have this. So if you're going to study abroad in America, keep that in mind, and my recommendation is to get a dorm room. Now, excuse me. Now, we're at 3 months before. What are we going to do 3 months before? 3 months before, you have your visa, you have your passport, you have almost everything you need to be ready to go. You need to get your flights in order now. So, how do we get our flights in order? Well, it's simple. We just go online and buy them. You would think, right? No. Let me give you a pro tip. I have traveled all around this little world, and I've lived in 7 different countries. Here's what you should do if you're going to get a plane ticket to come to study abroad. My recommendation is not to use Expedia. It's not to use WeChat flights. Look on Skyscanner. Yeah, I know. It sounds out of this world, right? Skyscanner is fantastic because you can book a flight with a layover somewhere else. So you can give yourself a mini vacation, go sip a margarita in Mexico just before you go into Mexico, or pop over to Spain for a week before you head over to the UK. Now, the next thing you need to do at the 3-month mark is you need to make a budget, and you need to stick to this budget whenever you get to the country you're going to. So, if you're going to America, make sure you budget enough cash for at least the first month that you're there. And I highly recommend sticking to this budget even after that first month. But the first month, no matter where you go, US or UK, that's going to be crucial. And the reason why is because whenever you move to a different country, the cost of living is going to be different. When I moved from Turkey to the United Kingdom, the prices for everything was very different. At first, I thought living here was very expensive, but then I realized the cost of living is only slightly higher because some things that were more expensive in Turkey were cheaper in the UK, and vice versa. Now, if you're going to America, you also need to budget for this because the cost of things is going to vary. For example, healthcare is really, really high, which is why you need student healthcare insurance. But other things might be a little cheaper. Until you can adjust to this cost of living, you need to stick to that budget that you're making. Otherwise, you might run into some problems with cash. Okay, now, Let's talk about what you should do 1 month before your trip. I bet you're really excited now and you're ready to go, and you're thinking, okay, what else could there possibly be that I need to do to get ready to study abroad? Well, 1 month before, you need to call your home bank, the bank in your country that you use, and say, ring, ring, hey, I'm going out of the country, and I'm going to be out of the country for a really long time. I'm going to go for at least a year. Why do we need to do this? Because if you don't do this, they might put a block on your card. We definitely don't want that happening. When you step off a plane, you need to be able to access your money, especially in a foreign country where you don't know anyone, you likely don't know the culture as well as your own, and you might not be able to communicate as proficiently as you think. For example, when I came to England, it took me about a year and a half to be able to understand what everyone was saying, because there are so many different accents. And then also the words and the language that we use is very different than what we use in America. So just keep that in mind. You really want to call your bank and say, hey, I'm going to be out of the country for an extended period of time. The next thing you need to do is you need to think about how you're going to make your telephone work in the country that you're going to be in. Look up a list of providers in that area. And then look at the coverage, make sure everything will work. One thing that I recommend is looking up if your phone is GSM, which means it has a little chip you can put in, or if it's CDMA. I think this is not a big problem most places in the world, but in America there are 2 different kinds of providers. So make sure that you get the one that will work with your phone. In England, I think every phone here has a SIM card, so I don't think it's a big issue here. Now, another thing that you need to do is you need to think about the different apps that you're going to use. If you're going to America, most people just use the standard messaging app in their phone. So that's obviously not going to work very well for you to send text messages to different countries. It will be very expensive. So I recommend downloading an app of your choice. I prefer WhatsApp and WeChat. Those are the 2 I use the most. But you can do WhatsApp, WeChat, Line, Kakao Talk, whatever app that you want to use. Make sure you download it, have it set up, and if need be, teach your family how to use it. That way you can quickly and effectively talk to them no matter where you are in the world. So, now, we have everything. I forgot one. With your telephone, you might also need to tell your carrier, hey, I'm going to a different country. Sometimes they'll put a block on the phone, and if you don't have the code to unblock the phone, you won't be able to use it with a SIM card. So make sure you do that as well. Now, a week before your trip, I bet you are so excited you can't even stand it. And I get that because, the anticipation and the suspense is like killing you. You're ready to see the new country, you're ready to live that new culture, and you're ready to be completely immersed in that language. I get it. I've been there, and I'm so excited that you're going to be in this situation. But there's still a couple more things that we need to do. So a week before, pack your bags. Do it a week before. That way throughout the week, because you're going to be gone for a long time, throughout the week, you can pack all the things that you might have forgotten on the night that you have packed. Don't pack the night before. That's going to set you up to forget many different things. Instead, pack a week before. That way, throughout the week, you can pick up small things that you might have missed. The next thing that you need to do is put all of your important papers in a carry-on bag. Do not put them in checked baggage. Sometimes airlines lose these, and if you lose them when you land in your host country, you won't be able to go through immigration. So make sure you keep your important papers like your visa, your passport, all of these important documents with you, because the immigration advisors will ask for them when you get there. The immigration officers will ask for them, not advisors. An advisor's there to help. An officer is just there to ask you questions. All right, so make sure you take them with you. Don't put them in checked bag. I made this mistake once and it was horrible. I couldn't get into the country for a couple hours because they were looking for my bag. Now, keep at least $100 or 100 pounds on you, depending on where you're going. Get the currency of the country you're going to, but get at least 100 of it. So if you're going to America, I recommend going to the bank in your home country and taking out $100. If you're going to England, go to the bank in your home country and take out 100 pounds. Why, in today's world, in 2022, do I recommend going to a bank? Well, I recommend going to a bank because you get lower rates. If you go to an ATM, you might get charged an ATM withdrawal fee, or you might get a higher exchange rate. So, you always want to go for a low exchange rate. And if you go to exchange money in the airport, you are going to be paying like 10, 15 times higher than what you would from a bank. So always go to a bank and get at least 100 of the currency that you need. 100 pounds, $100, whatever that country is. All right, guys. So the next thing you need to do is you need to plan your travel from the airport to your house, or wherever you're going to be staying in that country. Now, keep in mind, if you go anywhere in England, you're probably going to be able to get a bus or a train, but if you're going to America, that might be a little bit more difficult. So if you're going to America, you might want to plan a little bit more extensively. Maybe check and see if the university has a shuttle to pick people up. That's a good way to save some money if they do have that. But if they don't, you're most likely going to be sticking to a taxi. And I want you to prepare for that, because if you're in America, the taxi ride could be quite expensive. All right, guys, so the next thing that you need to do is you need to get some travel chargers, because whenever you go to America or England, the plug sockets are different. So you might not be able to plug your cell phone in or your computer. So make sure you get some of those a week before and put those in your luggage and take it with you. All right, guys, now the day's arrived, you get on the plane, you get to America, or you get to England, now what? Okay, there's some things that you can do on the day of your arrival as well. And the first one, which is the most important to me, is tell your family that you made it and that you are alive, because I can promise you they will be very worried, especially if it's your first time going outside of the country alone. They know that you're not coming back for a while, or you might not come back at all. So just make sure you tell them. It'll make you feel better. It'll make them feel better. Now, the next thing that I recommend is once you get to where you're staying, whether that be a dorm or a house share, settle in. You are going to have jet lag. If you're coming from China and you're going to America, the jet lag is going to be huge. If you are coming, maybe from Mexico to America, probably not so much jet lag. Either way, give yourself some time to get used to it. Give yourself the time to settle in and feel very comfortable. There's nothing like settling in, feeling comfortable before you start really hitting it hard. Now, you're settled in, now what? Okay, head over to the university, make some friends, and make sure to have some fun. All right, guys, so that's everything I recommend if you're going to be studying abroad with a timeline. I'm going to put a file over here in the description for you guys. You can download this and have it as a checklist. And also, feel free to let me know in the comments if you have any questions about the study abroad process. I've gone through this when I moved to the UK, but I've also gone through many other travels, obtained many visas from many countries around the world. So if you guys are having any doubts or any questions about it, hit me up in the comments and I'll respond as soon as I can. Also, if you guys like the video, please like, comment, and share. I want to help as many people as possible, and I hope that with this you have a roadmap to get to where you want to go. All right, guys, I'm Sean with Lou English, and I hope to see you soon. Bye, guys.